Yeah, it's working. There we go.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Yes, back to the Plutonium Show. It's been a while since we've been here. It's been since last August. For those of you who are new, because we've had around 60,000 new people join us since our last episode last year. Welcome. This was the original format of the channel prior. But don't worry, we're going to have the solo videos running as usual, 2 per week. And this is just going to supplement once a month for now to ease my co-host back in. Now, those of you who are not new, this is a familiar face, Zach, who exactly 2 years ago I introduced as my co-host in life.
I still love that.
So welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Well,
yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Everyone's missed you. Honestly, the reason that this show is back is purely down to all of your comments throughout the months of, we want Zach back, bring back Zach. So by popular demand,
here I am. Zach
is back. Great. So we obviously have a lot of catching up to do with the royal shenanigans because you've been MIA for the past 7 months, I think.
Has it been that long? Wow.
Since last August.
Yeah.
Maybe 6 months, whatever. Who's doing the math degree here?
Yeah.
But yes, a lot's happened. Meghan had her podcast, which that was the last episode that we made for the Plutonium Show, talking about her first podcast episode with Serena Williams.
Oh boy.
We were at a hotel and yeah.
Man.
So in case you're wondering, everyone, I suppose maybe just very briefly tell everyone why you were gone for so long.
Well, we moved house and we were traveling for one, and it's quite impossible to have a mobile podcast. You can try, but to kind of get it up to the level that we had it just wasn't going to happen. So yeah, I took the opportunity to take a break, and here we are back again. So yeah, break's over. Time to get back into it.
Once a month.
Yes.
All right. So I think the best way to do this, because it's going to be impossible to catch you up on everything over the past 6 to 7 months that you haven't talked about. So I think we're going to start off with the most recent topics that have been circulating so far, which predominantly is the coronation, which is coming up, as we know, on the 6th of May. So we haven't been talking about Meghan and Harry in our normal real life off camera, believe it or not. That's not something we like to do. So what do you know so far about, well, I guess I should ask you, do you know that they've been invited to the coronation despite everything they've done?
Yes, I was aware of that, which, I've been waiting this whole time to hear that they've been uninvited, because it's ridiculous that you can do so much to a person, right? In this case, what Meghan is doing to the royal family, and they just turn over,
Just to, I suppose, maybe not correct you, but it hasn't just been Meghan, believe it or not. It's been the brunt of it this time around has actually been Prince Harry because of his book. As we all like to call it. Wah. That was not rehearsed. So yeah, which makes it all the more distasteful to me, because it's the son, it's the brother, it's the actual family member who's causing all the chaos. And Meghan, very predictably so, because this isn't the first time she's done this, is keeping a little bit low key and trying to stay off camera because she likes, this is my theory and the theory of a lot of people actually, she likes to make herself scarce when things aren't going too well, and she likes to throw Harry kind of in front of the cameras, taking all the hits. Yeah.
Harry's definitely a body shield when when it gets really rough. But I guess the reason I will say her name first when we're talking about it is because would Harry really be doing any of this if it wasn't for her,
That's a fair question. Because, I suppose past evidence indicates that he wasn't doing any of this, at least not publicly, because, if you've got issues with your family, no one's faulting him for having issues with his family. Everyone does, but you deal with them in private.
Yeah.
And the only example that he's following at this point that we know of who's behaved in the exact same way is Meghan.
Yeah.
With airing her dirty laundry and trashing her own family publicly, pretty much ever since 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
So I see what you're saying, but at the same time, we do have to acknowledge that he is a 38-year-old, turning 39 this year-old man, who is responsible for his own actions. Whether his brain has been severely compromised by drug use is unknown at this point. But yeah, so far, I just think he's just as culpable.
Absolutely. I don't want to ever take away the blame from him, but it's just, that's how I'll when I say Meghan and Harry, it's the first problem, then the second problem. They're both problems. And the other thing too is that, Harry has proven to be quite, let's say, lacking in the brain department.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a factor here. A smarter man would not have fallen for all of these tricks that Meghan's pulling, and would not allow himself to be a puppet piece just because Meghan can't take the heat that she brought upon herself. So
yeah, I'm glad you bring that up, because I think what people really value with having your voice on this topic is the fact that you're a young man and you don't really hear many, young straight men talk about this topic. I'm not trying to make this about gay versus straight, but usually straight men aren't interested in this. And quite frankly, I mean, you're interested in it from the angle of kind of, shining the light on toxic women, right?
Absolutely. And, that's what this is really. It's that's why I think it's so important to talk about it. As much as obviously the Meghan supporters will say it's petty, I don't think it is, because Meghan is an example of what a lot of women think they can get away with, when it comes to just being toxic. And we don't often, we kind of do get examples come out, but this consistently, one thing I've always believed is that when you reach a certain status, you are responsible for for your audience at that point. You have a responsibility to not mislead them, to not say things that could harm them. Yes, in an ideal world, everyone's smart enough to make their own decisions, but that's not the world we live in. So there are people out there who are definitely seeing Meghan and think just because she's popular, she's doing the right thing. And that means that she suddenly becomes a role model just for that. It could be as simple as a dress she wears that inspires someone from a younger generation. So it's important to call these things out, because otherwise she's going to breed a whole lot more toxic women down the line. And we need to keep having those conversations. Otherwise, the next time a toxic woman comes around, if we all stayed silent for the first one, then yeah.
Yeah, no, a very fair point. And I actually do know a couple of young women my age who were so inspired by her that they thought, oh, I had a bit of an argument with this family member. I think I'm going to cut them out. So this is a real problem. She really is setting an example of this is how you treat your family and your friends, and your colleagues if things don't go your way. Because we're not even talking about people who have wronged her. These are people who have simply stood up to her and called out her bull. So on the other hand, there is also this argument that may not have been as valid last time you were here with us, but ever since Netflix and ever since the book, people have really stopped taking them seriously, as you would know from the South Park episode, which you've watched.
That was such a good episode. And man, this is the other thing too, right? Showing how ridiculous they are, how over the top and hypocritical, really, the worldwide privacy tour. I mean, that just really hit the nail on the head. And that might have been the first time that some people have even heard about them or even known about that sort of stuff. People think that, sometimes anything animated is just a cartoon and should be taken seriously. No, there are political statements in there. Well, not just political, but all sorts of statements just to show the absolute I'm losing words for it. It's insane how well they hit the nail on the head.
It was so accurate. I think, I had a whole whole video talking about it. It's really something when you say that, a piece of satire, it just hits the nail on the head. You know what I mean? Because obviously, usually these things are really exaggerated, and some moments, of course, were exaggerated in this episode. But all in all, even my brothers who don't really follow the news on Meghan and Harry, and they don't care much for it, they watched it, because I watched it with every single family member in the house, like repeatedly, because it was that good. And they watched it and they were like, it's so true.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just any medium that effectively communicates the just sheer stupidity of the Meghan and Harry act is just, it's so powerful, because in new audiences everywhere. And just this exact example, right? People like your brothers should know how toxic a woman can be, because otherwise they could find out the hard way. Any man can find out the hard way that a woman is not who she presents to you at first. It's
yes, but we also have to make it clear that this applies vice versa as well.
Absolutely.
You can have a very wonderful, trusting woman who falls for such a deceptive, duplicitous man. And it actually happens a lot. I remember when I was younger, watching a lot of psychology videos about narcissism. And interestingly, a lot of them, I would say 99%, were about female victims of male narcissists. So, I think that's what makes Meghan not interesting. I mean, I can't deny people find her interesting, but that's what makes it so topical. It's stuff that has almost been normalized for men.
Exactly.
And not that it's good.
Yeah.
Of course, it's never good for a man to isolate his partner, a man to brainwash his partner, But when a woman does it, and on such a global scale, it really grabs your attention.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that there's really a debate for, if you talk about a man displaying these traits, you go, oh man, that's trouble. She's in trouble. We should get her out of there. You talk about it the other way, and a lot of people let it slide. Oh, that's just how women are. It's like, that's not how women should be, though.
It's not that they say that's how women are. They just trivialize it.
Yeah.
It's like your experiences with, for those of you who are new, maybe you don't know about this much, but basically, I'm not going to go into it, but a man can be stalked and harassed and attacked and unfortunately sexually assaulted. Everything that a man can do to a woman can do to a man.
Yeah.
And that's the impetus behind this whole channel, really. It's this realization through Zach's story that when a woman does something, whether it's a crime or whether it's petty, like the things Meghan does, it's always trivialized.
Yes.
It's never seen as worthy of fixing, worthy of drawing attention to, worthy of talking to. And when you do bring attention to it, you're labeled as, in this case, jealous, bitter, racist, sexist. It's this horrible woke mentality, which goes hand in hand, unfortunately, with toxic femininity, of a woman can do no wrong.
Yeah.
And we saw it with the first case that I took on in this channel, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
Yeah.
Everyone who watched the trial last year, you may think the whole world's always been on Johnny's side, but I was there in 2020 when I was just a fledgling YouTuber, and no one was on his side. And everyone who talked about Amber and who exposed her was labeled as a jealous, bitter, misogynistic, whatever, insert horrible derogatory term you want.
Yeah.
So, that's why it's all the more important to talk about these things, because I'm so sick and tired of people just giving women a free pass. Just like, Meghan plays the race card.
Exactly.
So it's got nothing to do with your gender, and it's got nothing to do with your race. It's got everything to do with your behavior.
Yes.
So if the roles were reversed and Harry was the one treating Meghan this way, we would be saying, oh, we need to draw attention to this behavior.
Yeah.
Being perpetrated by a man in this instance.
Yeah.
So with the coronation, I was personally not surprised when King Charles sent them an invite, even though I think a lot of us were hoping that he would draw the line, because the way I saw it, and I talk about this in a video called The Traitor, is if the palace, if the monarchy, and if King Charles, are worried about backlash from people, or worried that Harry and Meghan's entire narrative of victimhood is going to be confirmed by a lack of an invite, I think that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
I think people have seen enough and read enough with the book to know that if King Charles decided to do something as drastic as that, it would be completely justified and understandable. What do you think?
I think that there's such an easy way to avoid this, because all King Charles has to say is, due to the outrageous accusations in Harry's book, right? There's your first piece of evidence. I'm doing A, B, and C, such as not inviting them to the coronation. So if you cite the evidence and cite the reasons, right? If he comes out and just says they're not invited, I get how some people can speculate and then they get to twist the narrative. But if he starts on the attack, right, as opposed to just being defensive, makes it an official statement due to all the things that they've said, this is why, as in it's a consequence to their actions.
I see what you're saying. I disagree. I'm not saying you're wrong. I think he just shouldn't have invited them, for example, and just not said anything.
Yeah.
But then people will connect the dots. Whoever is on their side, whoever wants to play the blame game and say, oh, so you are racist. Oh, so you guys are sexist. They're never going to change their minds.
Yes.
The Sussex squad, they're never going to go anywhere. But the rest of the world sees them for the farce that they are.
Yeah.
Is that even the right word to use? And it's reflected even in poll results, even in the US, where Prince Andrew is more popular than Meghan and Harry.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Speaking of which, apparently he's planning on writing a memoir copying Harry.
Oh boy.
So clearly he hasn't seen how that's backfired in Harry's face, but...
I mean, a memoir to attack the royal family, or a memoir to... Who knows, right?
No idea.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still technically within the royal fold. He's living on palace grounds. He hasn't exiled himself effectively like Harry has, but maybe he's just low on the cash. I hear that King Charles has slashed his yearly income. He's been forced to move out of Royal Lodge into Frogmore Cottage, which is where Meghan and Harry used to call home, even though it stood empty and desolate for years. They were still hurt and shocked when they were evicted, which, newsflash, you can't be evicted out of a place you don't live in anymore. I mean... Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
But,
evicted.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole thing about that too. But the way I saw it was, if he didn't invite them, the world would have understood by implication.
Yeah.
They wouldn't need an express statement. Because I don't think... This is my personal opinion. Again, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm sure a lot of people might even agree with you. But I don't think the king should bring himself down to their level by even releasing a statement about them. I think they should be so just, irrelevant that he doesn't even factor that into anything.
Yeah.
But the majority of people, from what I've noticed, at least in my comment section, is they think that he did the right thing by inviting them, because he's proving to be the bigger person, which is something that I've been hearing throughout the years ever since they started acting up. So how long is that going to take? But they're also saying he's playing the long game.
All right. I mean, I don't see... Look, unless it's going to be the same as the last time they were invited to something. I forget what the event was.
The Jubilee.
The Jubilee, that
last
one.
Year.
Where they were essentially humiliated. When people were booing them off the street, and then they had to, I mean, remember that one girl who said, I want to grow up to be just like her.
Yeah, the 14-year-old. Oh, that was actually the funeral walkabout. That was after the Queen's passing, but before the funeral.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was that 14-year-old, which people say she's a plant.
That's exactly what I would think. Obviously, I don't have any evidence to support that, but I mean, that's the first theory I have about that, because it's just so forced. And that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
An entire crowd booing is not forced. That's a natural reaction. But, let's turn the camera to this one person and we know they're going to say something positive. Way too coincidental.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. But at the same time, being devil's advocate, it's a 14-year-old. She's a child, and she might have been so overcome by seeing Meghan in front of her and seeing her glamour, and just, in the moment was washed over with, that kind of, I just met a celebrity, and she's like floating in cloud 9. So it could have also been that, because
Yeah, I guess
she's a child. I don't know.
I guess 14-year-olds aren't quite the best at separating celebrities from the reality of their situation, which is they're not actually above us and they do the exact same things as us.
And a 14-year-old hasn't gone through life enough to understand the implications of what Meghan has been doing.
Yeah.
You know, to her own family, for example. So yeah, that's how I saw it. But again, could be a plant.
Yeah.
So yeah, people are saying play long game. So you're saying if it's like the masterpiece of the Jubilee where they were put in their place essentially, then you're pro them being invited.
Yeah, but I just don't understand because, all right, I think we can all agree that we don't know what King Charles is really like. We've seen the Queen do things. We've seen her play back, you know, with essentially power moves like the Jubilee. But we don't know if Charles is capable of that. And that's where this really falls down. Is he just going to play and this is absolutely the wrong approach, their family, so they can do whatever the hell they want and I'm still going to forgive them? Well, that's a one-way ticket to continuing to be, can I say abused?
Yeah, you can say that word.
Yeah. So I can't blame Susan anymore. Susan's no longer the CEO.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if he's... Look, I don't know enough about him, but I genuinely don't know if he's that clever.
Yeah, and that's a very fair point because I think that's how I feel about him too whenever I talk about, you know, King Charles and how he's handling the situation. You're right. We got a very good read of what the Queen is like.
Yeah.
Because she's been the Queen for our entire lives and the entire lives of many of our audience members. So when it comes to King Charles, I do rely a little bit on Tom Bower because I obviously, you know, read Revenge and he has such a good grasp of what Meghan is like. Yeah. And he's a barrister, or he was a barrister. Very intelligent man. He knows what he's doing. He's, you know, Meghan hasn't sued yet. So he wrote a book about King Charles back in 2018 called The Rebel Prince. I will be buying it.
Yeah.
And he seems to have a good grasp. So whenever I watch Tom Bower talk about King Charles, it's not the best picture that he paints. He keeps referring to him as a weak king. Yeah. And a softie. And, you know, nothing like his mother, who is prioritizing his son over his own role as king. Yeah, that's tricky because this is kind of the crux of it, isn't it? At what point do you draw the line and say, look, you're in my family, but if you cross this line, then suddenly there's going to be some separation, you know? Well, I think for starters, if let's say it's an event like the coronation is not a family affair. It's not a wedding. Yeah. It's a state affair. Yeah. And the people of the United Kingdom have made their thoughts very clear and have made their opinions very clear on Meghan and Harry and whether they want them to be at the coronation or not. Yeah. Basically, they don't. I wouldn't even have to guess that. We saw that at the Jubilee. So if Charles is letting them come back against the wishes of the people he serves, what does that say about him? Exactly. And I think I touched upon this in a couple of videos, but most recently in a video, which the name of it escapes me right now. I mean, I guess I can just have a look here. I think The Besieged. I think that's where I talk about this. How basically Meghan and Harry are ruining the reputation of the monarchy and are taking it down with them, but not in the way that you may think, in the sense that it's not what they're saying. It's how the king's reacting. So people are losing respect for their own king. And this is not my opinion, because I think, unfortunately, you know, especially with maybe longer videos that are packed with information and a lot of talking, people can miss, you know, when I say this is not me, I'm sharing what others are saying. Yeah. So I put screenshots, and there were just a handful of hundreds and hundreds of comments I've been reading over the past month of the citizens of the United Kingdom expressing such dismay and such disappointment with their king and how he's been handling this, to the point where they're saying, if I see them on that balcony, which they're asking to be on the balcony, apparently, of course they are, then I will lose all respect for the king, the monarchy, and I'm going to vote a republic. I'm going to vote for a republic. Absolutely. I mean, why wouldn't you in this situation? I mean, the thing is,
the changing of guard, right? Even in a basic election when there's no royalty involved, right? When you're the new guy on the block, right? People are going to watch you and say, okay, what is he going to do next? What's about to happen? Because we don't know. Charles has never been in this position before. We don't know what he can do and what he's capable of. How much of a power move would it be for him to put his foot down and go, hey, this is how it's going to be? You know, he's not only demanding respect from them and saying, if you disrespect us, you're out. But he's also showing everyone else that they're worthy of respect. But if you just lie down and take it, then if you can't respect yourself enough to stand up for yourself, how is anyone else going to respect you?
Yeah. The interesting thing is, and I think this is what most people said to me in the comments of The Besieged, people who disagreed with me, or not disagreed with me, disagreed with these comments and these thoughts that I've been sharing of people losing respect for the monarchy. They're saying all of this backlash is way too premature. And he barely ascended the throne. His mother is barely, cold in her grave. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
I think it's been a while, but he's still mourning. Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. I'll give him that. So people are saying, look, he's just gotten into the role. Just cut him some slack and wait to see what he does, specifically after the coronation, because it's very fair, I suppose, to say that that's what's on his mind right now. He has been waiting for this moment of the coronation his entire life. He's been the king in waiting for his entire life. And so people are saying, just hang on. Even if they show up, we don't know how they're going to be received.
Yeah.
And we're not even talking about the public, because we know how they're going to be received by the public.
Yeah.
We don't know how cold the royal reception is going to be. Of course, if you read the news, unfortunately, there's a lot of clickbait to the point where you just don't know what to believe anymore. What I'm hearing is that Meghan's going to be offered a tiara from the Queen's collection, and she's going to be front and center. And they're asking, as I said, to be included on the balcony, which the Queen did not allow last year at the Jubilee.
Yeah.
This time, I don't know if they know that Charles will bend to their will, because this is part of their negotiations. If you want us to show up, then we want to be on the balcony, and we want Lily and Archie to be acknowledged. Like, literally, they want the king to bring them up, as in like, oh, and Lily and Archie are prince and princess, like basically acknowledge their existence. I think they may want an acknowledgement of Archie's birthday because it falls on the same day. And they want, there have been leaked reports that they're not part of the procession. So they want to be a part of the procession. So yeah, they're acting like they have the upper hand. And it worries me, because are they that tone deaf that they can't read the room, that they don't know how low on the totem pole they are? Or is the palace giving them reason that we don't know about to believe that they have some kind of an upper hand in this?
Well, look, both can be true, because every time Meghan opens her mouth, she shows how tone deaf she is.
That's
she
true.
Literally still thinks that she can shift the narrative of her fame or infamy. And every time she tries anything, whether it be a podcast, whether it be the Netflix series, whatever she does, every single time she does something, even being quiet now and letting Harry be her mouthpiece, it backfires, So she is the very definition of tone deaf.
Well, again, speaking of, recent videos, the Humanitarian.
Yes.
Which you helped me pick a thumbnail for.
Yeah.
That whole video is how she cosplays as a humanitarian, because she went to this homeless women's shelter.
Yeah.
Dressed in hundreds of thousands worth of, dollars worth of clothing, including this bag, this Dior, was it Dior Chanel, that cost £6,000. That's 11,000 Australian dollars to a homeless shelter.
Yep.
I mean, talk about tone deaf. And I think what's sickening is we know it's not tone deaf, because at least when I think about tone deafness, I think someone's unaware.
Yeah.
But when it's intentional, it's just all the more disgusting.
Yeah, this is the thing. She's so up herself. She can't see how everything she does is just received so horribly, because she genuinely thinks, almost like a child, You know, when you're a child and you think about, someone says, I don't know, you're going to an event and you have this grand idea of how this event's going to be. You rock up, it's nothing like that because you're a child. You don't know any better. It's like her brain has not developed past that part, at least for the imagination side. She is so delusional to think that, you know, what she's doing is okay, when it's the furthest thing from it. She thinks, oh, I'm going to rock up to a homeless shelter dressed head to toe in things that these people couldn't afford, you know, in their entire lives. It's just, and the thing is, she's proud of it.
Yeah.
She's even hearing back on it. You know what? She probably thinks to herself that every single time she does something like this, that the tabloids are going to be talking about what she's wearing in a positive realm, because that's like a typical celebrity thing where, oh, she wore this and she wore that. I mean, why do we have the galas and the Oscars and the Emmys and all that sort of stuff? 90% of it is about what people are wearing on the red carpet, and the awards get thrown to the side. Until very recently are we seeing them being taken seriously again. So that's what she wants. That's what she cares about.
So you think that she's delusional in the sense that she thinks she's going to get positive attention?
Absolutely.
Interesting, because what I said in my video, The Humanitarian, is quite the opposite. What I said was, to people like Meghan, any publicity is better than no publicity, or bad publicity is better than no publicity. So I think that she knows she's going to get backlash because, and I don't expect you to remember everything we talked about in the podcast.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you remember the Harlem visit to the school. Yep, 2021. And she was once again dressed in hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of clothing.
Head to toe.
To a school.
Yes.
To visit one of the most disadvantaged children in the country. And she knows there's backlash because for anyone who believed her in the engagement interview in 2017 when she said, I don't read negative or positive press. The Netflix docuseries was basically her and Harry for 6 hours sitting down and pinpointing articles and complaining about them. Yeah.
I mean, these people just consistently lie about everything.
So they just confirmed everything people like us have been saying for years, which is, you know exactly what, you know, is being said about you because you're obsessed.
Yeah.
And Tom Bauer revealed in his book, which Harry confirms in various interviews he's made to promote his book, and I think even in the Netflix docuseries, that he developed an addiction, this obsession. He didn't say Meghan did it, but Tom Bauer says both of them did it, of scouring the internet, trying to find anything negative being said about Meghan. So my point is, she knows exactly the backlash after the Harlem visit. And yet she did the exact same thing less than 2 years later. So that's where my theory of any publicity, she knows it's going to cause uproar. What are you wearing to a homeless shelter, woman? But she wants it because she has no talent, no discernible talent, no intelligence. I mean, she's got some intelligence, I have to give her that. But nothing to put her on the map other than outlandish, outrageous behavior.
Yeah, now that you put it that way, actually, that's probably how she thinks she can stand apart from, you know, people who actually have talents and actually have, I don't know, decent qualities of human being. But I would also say that she probably also thinks that every time she gets negative backlash, the go-to excuse, you tell me if you've heard this one before, she probably just thinks, oh, they're probably all just jealous.
Yeah, and it adds to her arsenal of, woe is me.
Yeah.
I'm such a victim. All I did was get dressed and go out to lunch. And then on International Women's Day, I went to a homeless women's shelter and look at the backlash. Look at what they chose to focus on. Well, excuse me, lady. If someone chose to go out naked in the streets, and you know, it's another extreme, obviously. But wouldn't we talk about it?
Yeah.
Wouldn't the media pick it up? And what I did in The Humanitarian was actually bring up photos of her visiting homeless shelters in the past. I think it was one photo, to be honest, because she's not a real humanitarian, where she was actually dressed pretty low key. Yeah. And I was like, so she knows how to do it. She knows how to dress up for these places. You dress according to where you're going.
Yes.
So it just, you know, for her to complain in the future, which she surely will, look at the backlash over this good deed I was trying to do, is just another indicator of how, I suppose, I don't want to say far gone, but how stubborn she is with this clinging on to this notion of, I'm a victim. She is so hell-bent on being a victim. And that's one of the qualities that makes her so deplorable, because she's part of this whole woke brigade of victimhood, which couldn't be more off-putting.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, everyone in the audience, think about one person who inspires you. One person who makes you feel glad to be alive. One person who makes you want to be a better person. Are they a victim? Have you sat there and listened to someone whining and complaining for a career, for a living, and think, gee, they inspire me to be a better, I want to go out there and do things, in the world and do things with my life. It's like, what purpose does a person like that serve?
Exactly. And just thinking about it, the most powerful stories that we've probably heard as humans are those of people who were actual real victims of a situation and then rose above it. Whether it be they found themselves in, like people who have lost limbs.
Yeah.
And then they go on to do triathlons and the sort and, win medals at the Olympics. And it's like, that's inspiring. Those people who, they'll get on stage and tell you their story and be like, there were hard days, but I rose above it, right? But they didn't run out into the media while they were in the trenches. They didn't go, look at me being in the trenches, because, it was real, for one. I mean, if you're just constantly complaining about being, the victim, obviously there is a time and place for victims to voice.
Of course.
But if you are writing the narrative of your own victimhood, as opposed to moving past it, because that's what we all want to do, right? Every time we end up in a bad place, we want to rise to a good place. Those are the real inspirational stories.
Yeah. And these two, and along with their, the entire woke brigade, but Meghan and Harry are spearheading it, are the exact antithesis of that. They're just insistent on, these are two of the most privileged people on the planet.
Yep.
That's what makes this so outrageous. It's like, you just watching the Netflix docuseries, I remember maybe it was the last episode and I summed it up and I was like, they're living a fairy tale life.
Yeah. We
got insight into their house, into their vast sprawling gardens, into how their kids are playing around in beautiful, areas that we normal people couldn't even dream of providing, well, we certainly didn't grow up that way. And a lot of us are never going to be able to provide that for children.
Yeah.
So for them to complain when they have things that most of us can only dream of.
Yeah.
And then to hear the victimhood, because it's one thing for, like you said, for a true victim to complain. Of course, you shouldn't ever linger and dwell on being a victim your entire life.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be who you are.
Exactly.
And you shouldn't want to be that. But it's an entirely different story when people like Meghan and Harry, who have nothing to complain about and everything to be grateful for, to do it. And for people, I think what makes it worse is those who support them in doing it, because maybe they're so, they're both each other's echo chamber.
Yes.
They're so toxic for each other. And maybe they're both stuck in this horrible toxic cycle. But for those around them to not only enable it because they're getting paid, I guess, but people who support them, people who don't know them, people who go dox people and attack people and insult people on their behalf.
Yeah.
To what end are you supporting this forced victimhood to make millions?
One thing that they all have in common, and I'm thinking back to, because there are still Amber supporters out there as well, after the entire trial, still people out there who think that what she did was okay. Yeah,
there was this whole trend after she was found to be liable for defamation, of reports going, she's not a perfect victim, and that's why she was found, as a liar. It's
exactly. And the common thread is that these are all people who cannot admit fault. Meghan can never be wrong about anything.
Yeah.
Right? And then
neither can Harry.
And neither can Harry. And then Amber could never be wrong about anything either. Even when a jury found her liable for defamation and she willingly destroyed someone's career, you know, even then it's like, oh, it's okay. Why? Yeah. Well, in that case, it was because she was a woman, because we flip it around and then suddenly it's going to be like, oh, it's a man. Now let's prosecute, right?
Yeah.
But the people around these cultists, the ones for Meghan, the ones for Amber, they can never be wrong, and they would love to be the victims of their own story. They would love to be the main character that everyone feels sorry for.
If I want to be a main character, I want to be, you know, the inspirational main character, the protagonist, you know, not someone who aspires to be a victim.
Exactly.
I guess they're just not right in the head.
No, they're absolutely not. Because there are people who sit there and think about how they're going to make it through life, and there are people who do. And that's the big difference here. You know, obviously the cultists will argue, oh, but Meghan made it. I don't think she's made it at all. I think she's the absolute perfect example of exactly what not to do, because anyone with 2 brain cells in their head wouldn't want the entire world to hate them. Absolutely.
I think before Harry, and I've said this before in prior podcasts, I think the level of, you know, not even fame, because no one knew her, but I think she was in a good place in life, you know, relative to other people. Whether her role in Suits was, you know, actually going to carry on, or whether she was ever going to land a different role, because she really struggled with that too. Whatever it is, I will never take away from what she attained at the time.
Yep.
But then for people to say, oh, you know, she's made it because of where she is today.
No.
For all the reasons you just said, I mean, I'd rather be, you know, a normal person who's not broke, but obviously not a multimillionaire like she is, and maintain my dignity.
Yes.
Than be Meghan Markle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the key, isn't it? It's what makes us a person, right? What deep down, what's important to us, right? Well, if we believe everything that we're fed from society, then, you know, everyone goes money, just money, give me money. But when you think about it a little more deeply, dignity, because there's a line for everyone that they won't cross for money. And that's a sign of how much dignity you're willing to keep. And Meghan isn't willing to keep any dignity. And that's the problem.
I'm actually really curious to know what her limit is. I really am. Because, for example, with this headline of, you know, Harry and Meghan want a special family moment. They want to be a part of it at the coronation. And the first thing I thought of was, you know, of course, after thinking about all the abuse they've hurled at their family, but I thought of Thomas Markle, who's been wanting a special moment with not only his daughter, but now his grandchildren for the past 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
And she's denied him that time and time again. He had a stroke, and what she did was go to Uvalde to pay tribute to the dead children of that horrible shooting, which with her own team of cameras.
Yeah.
With her own team of cameras. No one else did that.
Yep.
Instead of going to see her ailing father, who probably doesn't have much left on this planet. And the most important part to hammer home here is someone who provided her with everything.
Absolutely. Because once again, she had to spin her entire childhood into a victim narrative.
If this was someone who, you know, did her any wrong, then again, her behavior is not justified because she's airing it out publicly. But, you know, if she had her own issues with her father, no one's faulting anyone for that. But the problem here is when, number one, this man has given you everything. And even after she met Harry for Thanksgiving, she's singing his praises in an Instagram post. To this. Overnight, no explanation. Not even asking about his health.
Yeah.
You know, and you want a special moment.
Yeah.
Why? Why are you cutting the royal family if they've been so horrible to you?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, another thing they've done in your absence, you know. By the way, when I say absence, obviously I mean YouTube. We basically are. When I'm editing all my videos, he's right next to me, but I don't talk about, you know, Meghan and Harry.
Yeah.
On my off time.
Yeah.
But another thing that happened was their children got their titles. Now that's not something King Charles did actively.
Right.
It was just their birthright.
Yeah.
It's basically protocol.
Yeah.
So people are saying, oh, well, Tom Bauer, actually, he's saying he should have altered, they're called the letters patent. He should have written basically new letters patent to dictate that only working royals are entitled to such a title.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we do in, the real side of politics is we're meant to amend laws for the times. And so if we see a hole in that, you know, like, for example, driver's licenses, that's something that, it wasn't always a thing. So we should be amending it because now you have not working royals who are trying to claim all the benefits of working royals.
Well, they're not even just not working. They're U.S. citizens. And the U.S. has been independent since 1776.
Yeah.
So the announcement, by the way, was made by a tabloid magazine called People magazine.
Yeah.
It's Meghan's favorite magazine. It's the magazine that outed her, father's letter and her letter to her father over that whole case. Remember that whole court case? So she's definitely got, people there that she's pulling strings.
Absolutely. When you said it's her favorite, I went, you mean it's the magazine that she has the most friends at?
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, what a way to cheapen the monarchy.
Yes.
To announce royal titles through a tabloid. I mean, wow. Only Meghan Markle can do that. But so they're cutting the royal family so much slack after all the horrific things. I mean, she accused them of throwing her to the wolves in her Netflix, reality show. And yet you're happy to bestow titles upon your children, even though it's a racist empire 2.0.
Yeah.
And her children are mixed, even though when you look at them, I mean, need I say more? And they're happy to, come over to the coronation and they want a special moment. So what makes the royal family different to your own family, Meghan? Why are you so keen on maintaining a relationship with the royals? I wonder what the difference there is.
Oh, it might be, what was that thing that I just said before? Money. And
clout, which is a means to money.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the end goal, you're right. Absolutely. It's money. And the way to get it is royal clout. And they are running dangerously low. I mean, at this point, they've run out of it.
Yeah.
They've absolutely run out of it. And so they need to replenish, which I suppose brings us to the question or to the topic of, there's been a lot of will they, won't they, which honestly, I haven't really been participating in because, I think it's a waste of time speculating. And what they're doing, will they, won't they attend, by the way, the coronation.
Yeah, I figured.
And what they're doing is purposely maintaining this, they're purposely withholding an answer, an RSVP, because they want to be in the headlines. And that's why I refuse to bite.
Yeah.
I refuse to make videos speculating about whether they're going to attend or not. I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
I'm preparing for their attendance because knowing Meghan, she's not going to pass up an opportunity to be, on camera in a royal event, replenish that royal gauge, possibly put on a tiara after everything she's said and done. And whenever I think of William and Catherine, the position they've been put in, where they may have to sit next to these two. I mean, hopefully not. Hopefully they're going to be put in, what the British press have been calling Iceland. They're going to seat them in Iceland, in row 54 behind a big column.
Man, that would have been great. Honestly, that's a power move right there. It's like, you're invited, but it's like you're at the end of the table because what have you said? What have you done? You put yourself there.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of did that at the Jubilee. Obviously, it wasn't row 54. It was row 2. But they were completely in opposite. They were like on the opposite side of the royals. Yeah. Of working royals. So it could be done. But the point is, they've been purposely withholding their answer. Yeah. So that they can maintain, this clickbait kind of topic of they haven't responded yet. Will they and won't they? I couldn't care less, but the only thing is I think of the discomfort that the likes of William and Catherine will be placed in by their attendance. Yeah,
see, that's the thing, right? If Charles is looking out for Harry, right? If Charles is thinking about Harry, and I think you might have mentioned this before, then why does Charles not care about William? Because that's what this is coming across as. If you're going to favor Harry after everything Harry has done, and then you're going to put Harry right next to William, well, it's very clear that there's some favoritism going on here. And it's really not okay because, it's literally putting William in, I wouldn't say harm's way, but it's just completely unnecessary. Well, the thing is, I've actually mentioned this, you're right, in a video called The Traitor. And I said, well,
what message is the king giving William? You know, because William has really taken the brunt of all of this.
Yeah.
You know, the book, I mean, yes, it called Charles a selfish liar who leaks negative stories about his own boys so that he and Camilla could, you know, emerge looking better. He called Camilla a dangerous, well, not in the one sentence. He called her dangerous and a villain.
Right.
Who also would, you know, sacrifice everyone for her own image. It's funny because I feel like
Projection.
Yeah. But then there was William, you know, who he painted as an evil, barbaric bully.
Right.
So the damage sustained, I mean, actually there hasn't been damage sustained to William because people can see right through this now.
Yes.
You know, people can see William for who he is. And Harry and Meghan have lost all credibility at this point.
Yeah.
I think I remember seeing William's popularity dropped a couple of points, but nothing too drastic.
Yeah.
But what he's done, and we don't have children, you know, I've said this before, I don't know what it's like to have a child. I don't know what it's like to love a child. But I have been in situations where you have to stand with what's right.
Yes.
You know, whether it's someone who's a family member, whether it's someone who's a partner, a friend, if someone is doing someone else wrong, you can't say, yeah, but they're my friend. I'm going to stand with them, or I'm not going to involve myself. This has nothing to do with me.
It's one of the most selfish things you can do, because at the end of the day, you're saying my friendship is more important than the truth, than what's right, than justice.
The justice, yeah.
And it's actually disgusting. It's almost...
It's cowardly.
Yeah, it really is.
And we're not accusing the king of being a coward. But from where we're standing, the optics just don't look good. And it's not necessarily what's actually going on behind the scenes. But the message seems to be, no matter what Meghan and Harry say or do, and they've said and done it all at this point, they're always going to be welcomed back.
Yep.
If they're on that balcony, then I think I would just, you know, everything people have been saying, oh, let's see, King Charles is playing the long game. No, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. You know, I know, who am I, right? He's the king, but I do defend them quite frequently. So, you know, I do have a vested interest. I'm a citizen of the Commonwealth and I respect him as our monarch. But if I see those two on the balcony, I will be sad to say that respect will be greatly diminished. Not for the monarchy, because I have such faith in William as a king.
Yes.
I genuinely hope that we're wrong.
Yeah.
And I hope that we're just not privy to what the king is capable of.
Yeah.
But from people who have studied him, biographers, I keep hearing the word weak.
Yeah.
And it's very concerning because, like you, I will admit that I don't have a gauge on King Charles.
Yeah.
I don't have a reading of him. I didn't grow up, you know, I'm too young. I didn't grow up really interested in him. And, you know, I credit Meghan Markle for my interest in the royal family. And I'm sure many young people in their 20s, or even in their 30s, can, you know, attest to that. Like, it's Meghan's, ironically, it's Meghan's introduction to the royal family that made the younger generation more interested. And maybe not so much maybe for the UK. You're all, you know, you have a vested interest in your monarchy.
Yeah, it's very different for, you know, just members of the Commonwealth.
Yeah, but internationally, I didn't really think twice about the royal family until Meghan started acting up. Even when she was within the family, we watched the wedding, I remember, but otherwise couldn't care less. You know, like I thought they existed. And it wasn't until the Oprah interview for me where I got invested because of the injustice. It could have been any other family. Yeah. You know, and at the time, I've always said the whole point of this channel was to bring awareness to injustice. Yeah. You know, and to just not sit there and let it happen. If all you can do is talk about it, then talk about it.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
Know? At least it makes people more aware.
Yeah. And it's not, you know, like we spoke about Will Smith when that happened. Yeah. And we spoke about the, you know, the optics of that. All right, well, where is this coming from? From someone who, you know, hasn't had incidents like this before. Yeah. You know, another relationship which we have all learned is quite toxic. So yeah, it really doesn't matter where you come from. If you're going to be unjust, and if you're going to toe the line between what's right and what's wrong, then, you know, we should be talking about that, especially now that we can reach so many people. Now that conversations can travel the world in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even think of myself as a monarchist necessarily. I respect the monarchy, but it's literally just the fact that they're being so wronged.
Yes.
Right now. And I know relatively people say, this is first world problems. They're rich and privileged and there are real problems out there. And that's fair enough. But we all have our interests. We're not all going to sit here and talk about poverty and war and, the virus. We all have our interests. And this is the one we chose to kind of shine a light on. It's not exclusively this. Johnny Depp was
absolutely
a huge interest.
Absolutely. And that's another thing too, is that this idea of this being a first world problem, well, it's actually a pretty big widespread problem. The idea of what toxicity we're allowing, right? That is a problem that as people in the first world, we should be addressing, because that's what we're up to.
Yeah.
Just the same way that it's like saying we shouldn't care about our diet because there are people out there starving.
Yeah, yeah, very good point.
We need to evolve naturally as a society so that we can eliminate bad things from our diets, so that we can be healthier, and so that we can remove toxicity from our friendships, relationships, and especially at the highest ranks with the people with the most exposure.
Yep.
That's the real crux of it, is that who knows if that 14-year-old was legit?
Yeah.
Because if she was, then watch out. The next generation is going to be even worse. And we have to put a stop to it.
Well, it remains to be seen if that's possible. I mean, I think it's a very promising sign that Meghan and Harry are essentially a joke.
Yep.
At this point. I'm sure many young teenagers watch South Park.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they were very tickled by that
Absolutely.
episode. Before we wrap things up for today, your thoughts on Prince Harry waxing lyrical about the benefits of illicit drugs? Because in his book, he admitted to taking some pretty heavy drugs like cocaine.
Yeah.
And now he's touting the benefits of certain psychedelics, weed, which I suppose, is legalized in California. Although people are telling me in the comments that since he's not a citizen, he's bound by federal law, which hasn't legalized the use of weed.
Yeah.
But essentially, without getting into the nitty gritty, your thoughts on someone like him with his platform and his influence on young people, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
Touting the benefits of drug use.
I mean, it's no different to what Meghan's doing, isn't it? Harry is in a position where where people will listen to what he says, whether they have a choice to or not, whether it's just, they want to get on with their lives, or whether people are genuinely interested. He's everywhere. So he has a responsibility for what he says. And I don't think that conversation in any way, shape or form should be coming from someone like him, who is saying it. If we look for an analogy of it, it's like someone who only listens to music and doesn't really care about music, but they're extremely heavily opinionated, and should they be the ones discussing in depth or making influence to things that could affect other people, or should it be left to the professionals?
Well, I mean, you say music doesn't have the capability of putting people's lives in danger.
Exactly. But if we wouldn't listen to someone who isn't properly invested or doesn't know what they're talking about in something as simple as music, then perhaps when it comes to people's health, right? Even when we had the vaccines, right? And the information that was shared with us, the things we've learned about this whole idea of everyone taking a vaccine, everything had to be carefully handpicked and crafted before the information was given to us, right? You couldn't misinform people about it. Yeah. Because the governments would be held liable. But Harry can say whatever he wants. What if someone, I hope this isn't the case, but what if someone was silly enough to go and experiment with drugs because of what Harry said?
That is the concern here. Because a couple of concerned parents have come out and have spoken about how they've lost their children to the specific drugs. I can't even pronounce a few of them, but he's been naming them. That he's been, he hasn't been promoting them in the sense that I think everyone should do it. But he's all but said that, you know, in the sense that he's sitting there and going, they've been great for me. And so, yeah, someone in his position can easily sway someone. So that's why parents have been coming out and saying, what are you doing?
Yeah. Look, it comes down to, even if you see someone eating something, right? If you like what that looks like and you see someone eating it, you'll think to yourself, oh, maybe I want to try that, right?
Yeah,
because that's just the natural inclination. So, yeah, you have to be careful with your words, and you have to, at this level of stardom, or infamy, I should say, you have to curate your words. This is why the royal family can't come out and say whatever the hell they want, right? You have to account for the lowest common denominator. It might only be maybe 0.1% of people who will take your words and twist them and end up harming themselves for it. But it really goes to show that Harry should be nowhere near a position of leadership and nowhere near a position of stardom, because it's completely irresponsible, and it is exactly what Meghan's doing, except that Meghan's doing it in a toxicity environment,
in a how not to treat people way.
Exactly.
The irony that she's gonna there's a rumor that she's gonna resurrect the Tig, which is a lifestyle blog. So she's gonna give people, you know, advice on things like, you know, whatever, fashion, how to dress to a homeless shelter, or how to treat your family right. You know, I can't wait to see what she's going to include, because back in the day when she was a nobody, it was trivial, it was cute. You know, I had to look at the archives. It didn't hurt anyone. But now that we know what, you know, who she is and what she's capable of, first of all, I don't know how anyone can take any lifestyle advice seriously from her or her husband.
Exactly.
For this matter. I mean, if you're going to give advice to anyone, maybe start with your husband. Because, what he's been doing is absolutely dangerous. And he did it with this doctor, Gabor Mate, who is retired now, but someone who isn't even qualified, I think, to you know, administer anything like that. And they did it in public in a monetized live therapy session. I made a whole video about it called The Enabler. And this, you know, just having the word doctor, sometimes people just think, oh, they know what they're talking about.
It's kind of a blanket term, like lawyer. You think, oh, you're a lawyer, you know every law about every country. It's like, no, there are certain lawyers for certain things. And from what I understand about this doctor, this is not his special field at all.
From what I read, his background is he's a family doctor, so he's like a GP, but he did he had a really keen interest on trauma, and healing that trauma with certain drugs. So he is a proponent of it, which again, I think it makes it dangerous. Because this isn't like something that, it's not like you can recommend fruit and vegetables to people. You know, everyone reacts differently to these drugs. They may have helped you. Talk about it in private. Talk about it in private. Go, you know, administer whatever you want to Harry in private. He's an adult. You know,
absolutely.
He's responsible for himself. But to do it in public, it was so bizarre enough for me to make a video about it.
It's actually quite tasteless, isn't it? It's just, it's so, again, it's almost tone deaf. I mean, that's essentially how we can describe these two, just tone deaf. But like I said, there's a more sinister edge to it, because maybe with Harry it's tone deafness, but with Meghan, everything she does is on purpose. The first video I made after our last podcast was The Blackmailer. And in that, it was about an article from The Cut magazine where the author described Meghan as someone who talks like she has a bachelor's producer in her head telling her what to say. So everything is calculated. And you really can't trust people like that, because those are the sorts of people who are always running by an agenda. Meghan's agenda, how can I use the current person I'm talking to my advantage? And if she can't, she's not interested in you see her father and her sister and her entire family. Because we've seen this too in those shots, right? You can see that she's putting on an act, and then you see the mask slip, right? Especially when another woman's talking jealousy much, you know? And
I've just, well, I guess even when her own mother speaks up, she goes, how dare you? There's a clip of that.
Because she's like, I can't get anything out of this. You know, those sorts of people are not to be trusted with anything. You know, if you can't have a natural conversation with someone, it's like you just know when someone's faking it, and you know that it's not genuine, and there's almost this gut feeling Just like stop faking it. Be real for once in your life. That's what she should. I mean, not that anyone wants to see her real side, but at least be real in private.
I don't think people like her even know who they are.
Yes.
Or they can't face it. They know who they are, but they're always putting on this persona because even they can't face the reality of the situation.
And the problem is that the only way that someone like her gets better in any way, shape or form, the only way you alter that personality is by taking a good, hard, long look at yourself, by figuring out who you are and then changing the things deep inside who you are to be a better person. Not by faking it. No one gets anywhere by fake it. Fake it till you make it. It doesn't work with everything.
Well, it kind of worked for her and then she ruined it because I suppose it only proves that it doesn't work.
Exactly.
She faked it long enough when she wasn't on the world stage, when she was playing in the kiddie box.
Yeah.
As soon as she got in the adult playground, she fell flat on her face.
Absolutely.
That's always how I describe Meghan Markle's trajectory to anyone who asks me, like, what's the deal with Meghan? You know, why is it all coming crashing down? And I'm like, well, this is how it is.
Yeah, it's like a lightweight getting into the room with a heavyweight and going, I can take him. I'm big enough for this. And what happens?
Yep. I think that's pretty much all we have time for today.
Yeah, we could go on and on with the last few months of catch up.
Yep. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed being back.
Yeah, it is good to be back.
Certainly enjoyed having you back. And we're going to do this once a month for now. However, we will say that if it does well, if, you know, there's enough interest, we will bump it up to a more frequent schedule. But again, for those of you who prefer the solo videos, if you're even watching till now, that schedule hasn't changed. So I will be maintaining 2 videos a week, sometimes 1, depending on how busy I am. But for you, nothing's changed. This is just an added bonus.
Yeah.
Which is a very much welcomed added bonus. It's very nice and it's a lot more relaxed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anything else you want to say before we sign up?
No, other than it's good to be back. Thank you for having me back. And yeah, we will see you all in a month's time, I guess.
Take care.
See you then.
Bye. Well, you'll see me in a solo video, like,
yes,
at some point this week.
I'll see you in a month's time.
Bye-bye.